seen one of these before. I grew up in a house where dogs were blue. That's because my dad, artist George Rodrigue, is most known for painting blue dog paintings. The blue dog has evolved into an international pop art icon. I myself have even been painted with the blue dog. And do you know what the most common question I get is? It may even be on your minds right now. It is, do I paint? My standard answer is no, but the business and legal side of the art world always interested me more. That's why I went to law school to study intellectual property law. And when I got out, I thought I would be doing things like seizing illegal blue dog items. Kind of like these shoes I'm wearing. These illegal blue dog shoes. It's always nice when the thing you seize actually fits you. Get that on there. But I never thought that I would be involved in arts and education as well. I hate to admit it, but I was one of those people who thought the arts were just about fluff. But do you know what the research shows about students with arts exposure? According to the College Board, students with 4 years of arts exposure or more score 103 points higher on their SAT scores. And that's great, right? But are test scores the whole story? Are test scores the reason why I gave up a life of chasing ambulances and keeping track of billable hours? No, there's a lot more to the story. And I think you will understand more about the important role of the arts in education if I tell you my story. So today, we're first going to talk about my dad's history as an artist. Second, look at how we started our foundation. Third, look at the issues in education today. And last, talk about what we are doing through Louisiana 8+ schools and arts integration. So first, let me tell you about my dad, because he's the driving force behind everything that we are doing. He started painting in the 3rd grade. He grew up in 1950s New Iberia, Louisiana. And in the 3rd grade, he contracted polio. But luckily for him, a new invention, almost as fancy as the iPad, came out that year, called the paint by number set. Do you guys know what the best-selling paint by number set was at this time? It was this, The Last Supper. What little boy wouldn't want to stay home for an entire summer and paint The Last Supper, right? He, of course, didn't. He turned it over and painted things that he liked on the back. Monsters, fire trucks, cowboys. And he told his mom he was going to be an artist. And he was serious. When he was old enough, he went to art school in Los Angeles. And he was in LA in the 1960s when the pop art explosion hit, when Andy Warhol's Campbell's soup can was on the cover of the LA Times. And he said that he was going to come back to Louisiana and paint it like no one had ever painted it before. Very dark and mysterious swamps and bayous, with the oak tree as his Campbell's soup can, the oak tree as his pop art icon. And eventually he started to paint people, like in this painting, called the Iole Dinner, based upon this photograph from 1910. And he painted these people in order to visually interpret their history as Cajuns, who they were, and painting their legends and folklore, like Jolie Blanc or Evangeline. Until one day, he was commissioned to paint a book of Cajun ghost stories, and he painted this painting about the loup-garou, a Cajun werewolf dog. His mom told him growing up, if you're bad today, the loup-garou will get you tonight. Kind of a classic boogeyman character. And he painted it based upon this photograph of his old dog named Tiffany. Now, nothing in the legend said anything about it being blue, but it was other people that called this image the blue dog. And that's when it took off in his mind for him. He could paint this blue dog because before, he was just painting the Cajuns and telling what had come before, telling their history. But with this blue dog, he could comment on life today or even the future. Like in paintings like this. Have you ever loved someone that can't love you? Or, don't turn your back on your troubles, because they'll just multiply. And eventually he dropped all those references to Louisiana in this painting. It's the first painting in 25 years without an oak tree. And this is when he realized that the blue dog could exist as a cultural pop art icon on its own. And that's what he's still painting 25 years later, having fun with this blue dog image and shape. And so now you understand about my dad's history as an artist. I want to talk about our foundation, the George Rodrigue Foundation of the Arts. My dad didn't realize how much his art could help people until the night of 9/11, when he painted this painting, God Bless America. He sold prints of it and raised $500,000 for the Red Cross. Then, when Katrina hit the Gulf Coast, he painted this, We Will Rise Again. Print sales of this and others in our Blue Dog Relief series raised about $2 million for recovery. And this was about the time that I was getting out of law school, and we decided that we wanted to be more proactive with our charitable work. And for years, students and teachers have been using the blue dogs in their classrooms. So we thought we could start a simple Arts for Art's Sake foundation to keep the arts in schools. And I was in charge of implementing our programs, like giving art supplies like these to schools across the state, and awarding scholarships to our college scholarships to our art contest award winners. We even have a book coming out this year featuring much of the artwork from our art contest. But we soon realized all these programs were just band-aids on the larger problems in education. And we wanted to do something more. But we first had to understand exactly what the issues were facing our education system today. And here's what we discovered. Graduation rates are on the decline. In Louisiana alone, 30% of our students drop out. That was 20,000 students who dropped out last year. Let me put that another way. In the last 3 years, 60,000 Louisiana students gave up. They said that getting an education wasn't for them. They were not engaged by what they were learning. Then, looking at test scores, No Child Left Behind was implemented in 2001 with the goal to increase scores in math, science, and reading. Schools felt the pressure to eliminate arts programs to make time to drill these math, science, and reading subjects. However, today, 12 years later, test scores have not gone up. In fact, last month, Secretary of Education Arnie Duncan said that only 1/4 of our students are scoring high enough in math, science, and reading to either be eligible for college or to be ready to start a career. But why does this matter? It matters because our students are our future workforce, leaders, and neighbors. And looking at technology companies like Microsoft and Google said that they can't find enough American students to fulfill the jobs that they are offering. According to CBS News and CNBC, 3 million US jobs are currently vacant because these companies can't find workers with the skills that they need for the positions that they are offering. These companies want skills like being able to solve 21st century problems and having so-called soft skills. Skills like being able to work as a team member, having self-confidence, and being able to use critical thinking skills. And it's with all those ideals in mind that we discovered A+ schools. I walked into my first A+ school in 2011. It was in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Now, as a Louisianian going to Oklahoma, you don't typically think of them as having much arts or culture. But these schools were amazing. They were loud. These students were laughing. You could tell they were engaged in the learning, and there was music echoing down the hallways. Their walls were all covered in artwork, matched to academic standards. And these students worked in groups. And not one class I walked into had a teacher giving a traditional lecture. We soon found out there were 120 schools like this across the country in the National A+ Schools Consortium. These schools were spread between North Carolina, Oklahoma, and Arkansas. And these schools take it on their mission to nurture creativity in every learner by getting serious about the arts. In 15 years of operation, the A+ network has found a way to transform entire schools. And we love the A+ model so much that we had to form a Louisiana A+ network of our own. Our students in Louisiana deserved to have access to schools like these. But before I tell you how it works, I want you to think about what it means to have arts in schools. Really picture it. How do you see art being used in schools? Most likely you're thinking of one of two ways. One is arts exposure, having students visit an art museum, or having a musician come to a school to put on a concert. Or second, you may be thinking of arts instruction by a teaching artist or art specialist, teaching the art form itself, like how to draw or how to paint. And these two methods of having arts in schools are very important, and we definitely need to encourage their use more. But in A+, we additionally think of arts in a third way, and that is called arts integration. Using the arts to teach math, science, and reading in all subjects. To give you an example of what that looks like, I want to tell you about Miss Shaston. She is a 4th grade teacher in an A+ school, and she teaches STEM subjects. STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and math. But now that she's an A+ teacher, she adds the arts in there, turning STEM into STEAM. And one of the lessons she teaches is on cell structure. And typically she would have handed out a piece of paper like this, with all the parts labeled, and hoped that her students could memorize all these separate parts. But her students typically struggled on their tests, and she didn't know what else she could do. But now that she was an A+ teacher, she handed out blank sheets of paper and crayons, and had her students draw a circle and say, that's the cell membrane. Then they would go through and draw in all the rest of the parts of a cell. Next, she would incorporate drama by having students get into groups and pretend like they were all these different parts of a cell. So one student would be a mitochondria, and they would have to act out what it means to be a mitochondria. And then they would all take turns acting it out. So they each had a turn being each part of the cell. What she saw was the students got it. They understood it. They were engaged by the material, and they were excited about learning. The test she gave showed they passed with flying colors. And this was amazing for her. She'd never thought this was possible. But imagine a whole school like this that teaches lessons using the arts. So, interpreting and understanding shapes by studying the architecture of Frank Lloyd Wright. Or listening to We Didn't Start the Fire by Billy Joel in order to understand world history. And then having students write their own new verses to understand current events. Sorry for the shameless plug of me with the Rodrigue Steinway. Everybody see it out there? Looks pretty good. So what happens in these schools? They are thoroughly researched, and the positive results in A+ are clear. The students see higher achievement, higher test scores. The students have less discipline problems. They're having too much fun learning to get in trouble. And actually, the attendance rates of both students and teachers goes on the rise because these students actually want to come to school and learn, and these teachers have a good time teaching. So how does it all work? Well, this year, our foundation spent about $400,000 to bring 7 schools into the network from across the state. We spent about half of that budget on our first professional development summer institute. these are some of our teachers at our Summer Institute. We trained nearly 100% of these 7 schools' entire faculties on the campus of LSU for 5 days. That was an entire week with us, learning these arts integration and A+ methods. These teachers in these 7 schools will impact 3,000 students this year. That is 3,000 students this year currently in Louisiana using these arts integration methods. And we will continue to train these teachers over the next 3 years of our implementation process, because it takes longer than just one summer to truly transform a school. And true transformation really has to happen with an entire faculty. I talked to Mary Harris, principal of South Highlands Elementary here in Shreveport, and she said A+ was the best professional development that she had ever experienced. She could already see that her faculty had transformed. And she wishes that every teacher and every faculty in the state could experience A+. Our foundation covered about half the cost this year. The other half was paid for from donations from outside the state, from corporate partners within Louisiana, and some of our schools were actually able to pay for their own training. We will add 5 to 10 new schools to the network every year. And any school in Louisiana is welcome to apply, whether they're public, private, charter, from age birth through 12th grade. Doesn't matter. Any school can be an A+ school. In the next 10 years, I believe that we can have the largest A+ school network in the country. And I think if we get there, we will have 100 schools in Louisiana that are A+. And that will impact nearly 100,000 Louisiana students. In Louisiana, a state known for our arts, culture, and uniqueness, we can be the leader and a model for reform in education by infusing more arts into our classrooms. To do that, it will take more companies like Capital One Bank in Lafayette. They pledged to support the training of an A+ school in their community. So today, we first looked at my dad's history as an artist. Second, at how we started our foundation. Third, looked at the issues in education. And last, looked at what we are doing through Louisiana A+ schools to meet those needs. And I think that we have a chance to make a real impact in education. And I hope you understand now the important role of arts in our schools. Please support programs that keep arts in schools in a meaningful way. Because the positive results are clear. The arts are about more than just fluff. So thank you for listening to me today. I think it's really possible, because our future as a state and nation depends on having our young people grow up to be our future workforce, leaders, and neighbors. To change the status quo in education, it will take a joint effort. But I believe it can be done. Because I grew up in a world of endless possibilities, where the impossible was possible. A world where dogs could be blue. Thank you.